Hello everybody and welcome back to my kitchen. I am so excited to walk you through the way that I use my Instant Pot today. Before I even start, just thought I would tell you what I love so much about using the Instant Pot. Number one is that it keeps all of the nutrients inside. So like when you're steaming vegetables or when you're cooking vegetables on the stovetop, a lot of the nutrients can become like evaporated and you don't actually get to consume them. So when cooking in the Instant Pot, everything stays all packed into the liquid and the food, and you get all that goodness, all that nutrition when you eat it. So it's really a healthy way to cook. The other benefit of it is that when you are cooking on the stove or in the oven, and you know when you get that caramelization or that char on your food, that char is actually not healthy for us. So there's ways around it, and we add seasonings and spices to help reduce the damage of those compounds. But when you cook in a slow cooker or an Instant Pot or with using a lot of moisture at lower temperatures, that's how you protect your food from getting that type of damaging compounds. So that's another reason that I love the Instant Pot. Another reason why it's really healthy is because not only does it keep in all the nutrients, but it also prevents that charring, that caramelization that is not very healthy for us. And then finally, I love the Instant Pot because it cooks enough to last for several nights. So if you really want to cook batch cooking, you want to have enough left over to feed your family for a few nights or even for lunches throughout the week, Instant Pot is a really great way to go. So before I get started, I'm going to show you what I have here because once I get started, this actually heats up really fast. So I won't be able to do as much describing of what I'm doing, so I'm going to wait to turn that on and just really talk about what I have in front of me first. So number one, I have grass-fed and grass-finished steak tips. So I highly recommend, if you could, to invest in higher quality meats like grass-fed and grass-finished, because that means that not only are the animals feeding on healthy grass while they're throughout their whole life, but even towards the end, when you get meat that is grass-fed but not grass-finished, it means that they were finished off towards the end eating grains, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Animals that eat grass have much higher levels of the omega-3 fatty acid, which is what we're really trying to optimize in our diet. We're trying to reduce omega-6 fatty acids. So animals that eat grains have higher levels of omega-6. So grass-fed and grass-finished is really our goal. So that's what I have here, steak tips. I haven't seasoned them yet because I'm always trying to have them maintain their moisture as much as I possibly can. Once you season meat, the moisture comes out of it and it won't be as moist and tender once you're cooking and eating it. So always try to save the seasoning either to right before you're about to put it into the oven or in the Instant Pot, or even some people won't even season it until it's after completely cooking it because you want to really contain the moisture inside the meat. So that's what I have here. What I'm going to start off doing is I'm going to saute that meat in some ghee. If you're trying to be completely non-dairy or kosher, you can absolutely use avocado oil. What I love about avocado oil and ghee is that they both have a really high smoke point, and we're always trying to avoid burning our fat. So if it has a higher smoke point, when we're cooking at higher temperatures, we can be assured that that fat won't burn. The other benefit of ghee as opposed to butter is that I often talk about how important it is to feed the bacteria in our gut. What happens when those bacteria are fed is that they release something called short chain fatty acids. Ghee is really high in short chain fatty acids, and that compound is very healthy for our digestion. So that's why I do like ghee better than butter, because it's higher in short chain fatty acids and it has a higher smoke point. So I'm gonna saute, I'm gonna have some of this warm up in the Instant Pot, and I'm going to season my meat, and that's gonna go in there first. Once I get a char on that meat, I'm gonna take it out, and I'm going to add in all of the rest of my ingredients, and we can talk about that as I go along. But I already have a whole tray of multicolored vegetables, all seasoned and ready to go, so that once I take the meat out and I add in some garlic and let the garlic melt, then after that I'll be able to add everything all together with enough moisture and close the pot and leave it alone, and it will just cook on its own, and it'll be absolutely delicious and enough food to last for several nights. So I'm hoping that I can coordinate the timing and the video and everything, but wish me luck, and if I mess up, then I will do another video with the same exact strategy. Okay, so we're gonna put this on saute, and this gets hot really quickly. So I'm gonna add my tablespoon, maybe almost even 2 tablespoons of my ghee butter. But again, you can add avocado oil if you're trying to be kosher or non-dairy. Remember, this is gonna heat up pretty fast, but ghee is especially healthy because it has that higher smoke point. It won't burn as easily at the high temperatures, and it also has those short chain fatty acids, which is a really healthy compound for our digestion. Now, while that ghee is warming up in there, this is when I told you I'm saving my seasoning of the meat till the last minute, because I didn't want moisture to come out of the meat. I always try to save my seasoning towards the end, because that will keep the moisture in the meat as long as possible. So right now, though, is about the time, as the ghee is melting in the pot, it's just about the time for me to start seasoning the meat. Seasons and spices are what protect those. I talked about this before. When you char meat, it does create compounds that can be damaging. They can be a little bit carcinogenic. So when we add all these healthy spices to the meat, it actually protects us. It makes those compounds less damaging inside our bodies. So I love to add a whole variety of seasonings for that reason, and then also because of how amazing it adds the flavor, the taste and stuff. So I have here salt and pepper. Those are the sort of obvious, just sprinkling over the top of the meat. Mustard, I love to add mustard powder. I especially love adding mustard powder to my vegetables, because mustard powder actually pulls out and makes more available some of the really healthy nutrients in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. So adding mustard powder to those type of vegetables while you're cooking is especially healthy. Here's some ginger. And I just use a whole variety, but you really pick what you like. I have some chili powder. I have some paprika. I have some oregano. I love oregano, that like flavor. You could also add some basil if you like that flavor. Some garlic and onion powder. I really go crazy with my spices. You know, there are days where I'm a little bit more particular and I just pick if I only want a specific flavor, but then there are days that I just throw everything at it and I just want everything. So I think that's about good. Oh, and I don't want to forget my turmeric. Turmeric is the same compound or nutrient that's in curcumin, which is extremely anti-inflammatory. I don't necessarily recommend running out and supplementing with curcumin, but because everybody is different, and it does cause, you want to make sure everything is in balance, and you might want to seek the help of someone who can really tell you if you need a curcumin supplement. But in cooking, you can go crazy, because it's really different when you take something as a supplement as opposed to when you're eating something in a smaller amount in food. In supplements, these nutrients are extracted and you're taking them at much, much higher doses. When you're just adding these compounds or nutrients to your food, you're getting them at a much lower dose in the balance of all the nutrients that it comes with from its natural source in food. So you're not just taking one ingredient out and raising the dose of that one, you're eating it in a good combination. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to place, you'll hear right away that this is gonna start sizzling right away. I'm placing the season down so that I can season the other side while the one side is cooking. So just sticking all of my grass-fed and grass-finished steak tips seasoned down onto the hot Instant Pot, which I heated up with some ghee butter, but you absolutely can use avocado oil if you don't want or have ghee in the house. But I do recommend either the ghee or the avocado oil because of the high smoke point. You don't want the oil or the fat to burn. And then the other thing that I love about the ghee is that it has those short chain fatty acids, which is the same compound that the bacteria in our gut releases. So it's really healthy to help along those compounds in our body. Okay. So try not to overcrowd the bottom of the pot. There are many times where I want to really overload this, and I add some chicken as well. And so I have a combination. It's almost like a meat, like a stew with the chicken and the steak tips. You can absolutely do that the same exact way. Season everything, stick them seasoned down. Just try not to overload, because then it doesn't cook as well. There's just too much moisture and the pieces don't get to cook. Okay, so while that one side is cooking, I'm going to season the other side. So right now, it's just on saute. That's the mode that I have it in, because in the beginning, I just want to brown the outside of the meat. I'm not yet trying to cook, cook the entire meal yet. Just trying to brown the outside. And what I'm going to do is then take the meat out and add in the rest of my ingredients. Okay. So again, I love my seasonings. I'm just seasoning the other side of the meat. This is going to happen really fast because this Instant Pot gets so hot so quickly. Last of my seasonings with my garlic and onion and my turmeric right here. Turmeric is so healthy. I try to add it to so many of my foods to make sure I get the benefit of that anti-inflammatory ingredient. So you'll see how quickly this happens. Already, this is already browning up. It's already time to turn the meat over, because right now I'm not trying to cook the meat through and through. I'm really just trying to brown the outside. So turning everything over. You see how important it is to have enough fat in there so that it doesn't stick. But I'm not really too worried about this being perfect by any means. Just trying to get a little bit of brown on the outside of that meat so that when we eat it later, after it's already slow cooking for a while, it'll have a good moist inside and a good little bit of like a little bit of a brown on the outside, which will be nice. So like I said, you can do this with chicken or steak or really any type of meat that you like. This is those steak tips from the grass-fed and grass-finished company that I order my meat from, and that's super important because the meat, when the animals are feeding on grass and they're out in the pasture and they're able to run around and have freedom, they become healthier, and the meat you eat from them is much healthier, higher in omega-3 fatty acids and lower in omega-6 fatty acids. So really, really great benefit from eating grass-fed and grass-finished meat. All right, so I think we're about ready. I am going to take the meat out and put it on a clean plate, and then I'm going to add in lots of garlic. Garlic is probably one of my favorite ingredients. Garlic and onions together to me is such a great flavor, and garlic is so healthy for you. So what I loved, and I said this before, about using the Instant Pot is that all the healthy nutrients in your food stay in the food, and that's one of the positives about cooking garlic in an Instant Pot is that all the benefits of garlic will stay in your food as it cooks with the Instant Pot closed and all the food in there. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more fat to this, and I do have some avocado oil. The garlic only has to stay in here for like 1 minute. You're going to smell it and you're going to know right away that it's already melting, it's already ready to go. You do not want to burn garlic, so it's important to just let it be in there for a minute, let it melt in. And then I have a whole variety of sauces and vinegars and things that I'm going to add to this. So let me go through this. And one trick, I'm not sure I need to do it yet right now, but one trick with Instant Pot is if it's getting too hot, you can literally just shut it off while you're preparing and then put it back on once all the food is in there. But I always like to add a little bit of acid to any combination of sauce that I'm using. So acid would be vinegar, some red wine that I just added. So I'm gonna actually add a combination of both. You always, in any sauce that you make, it always needs to have 1 part or 2 parts vinegar or some type of acid. So that was my red wine and balsamic vinegar. I'm gonna add some mustard because I love the flavor of mustard. I'm going to add some coconut aminos. Coconut aminos taste like soy sauce. The only reason I use this instead of soy sauce is because it's healthier. Soy in general in the United States has a lot of pesticides and other herbicides and unfortunately unhealthy ingredients for us. So I always use coconut aminos as my replacement. You can literally find this at almost every supermarket store, just in the condiment aisle where they sell soy sauce or balsamic vinegar or mustard. They sell it in the same aisle, so just look for it there. I also have these awesome sauces. These are made by this company called Noble Made. You don't have to use this brand, but the reason I like them is because when you look through the ingredient list on the label, every single ingredient on there is a food or an ingredient that you would recognize. That is how to know that you're eating a healthy diet, when all the ingredients that you consume are recognizable food. So whether you walk around the supermarket perimeter and you choose foods that were found in nature the same way that they look in there in the supermarket, like fruits and vegetables or meats, this is the way they were found in nature. Or if you're going and buying packaged foods, look at the label and make sure you recognize every ingredient as a food. Okay, so and that's why I like this brand, but please shop around and look for things like that as you go. I also have molasses here, and I love when I'm cooking meat to add, you really only need like maybe a half a teaspoon, maybe a tiny bit more, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon, because it's a really strong flavor, I think, when you use too much of it. But it's really good. It has like a caramel, like almost like chocolatey flavor to it. So I love that. And then another trick that I always use is that when I'm cooking meat on another day and I add like a sauce to the pan as I'm cooking meat, I save the leftover sauce and I use it in my cooking another day. So that's what I have here. I have leftover sauce that I used when I cooked steak the other night. And that is also a combination of the same ingredients that I just talked about, the balsamic vinegar, the molasses, the mustard, and the coconut aminos. It's the same combination, but because it was used to cook my meat, it also has like a more meaty flavor to it. So I like to add that. And one of the most important things to do when you're using an Instant Pot is always make sure that you have enough water at the bottom of the pan before you cook anything. Because if there's not enough water, it is going to let you know that the food can burn. So you might get like a little notification on here that says fire, and it really just means that you didn't add enough liquid. So I'm very careful about adding enough liquid. That liquid will end up being so healthy for you because it will absorb all of the nutrients from the food that it's cooking in there. And so don't even waste it. Make sure you eat that moisture, that sauce, throughout the week with your food. You might even want to save it and cook other food in whatever leftover sauce that you have from this. Okay, so now that we've pretty much finished that whole sauce, that was the combination of the acid from balsamic vinegar and a little bit of red wine. It was a little mustard and the coconut aminos, which is the substitute for soy sauce, and some molasses. I also added this sort of tomato-based sauce, which I love. It's a Noble Made is the name of the company, and I love it because they use really whole and healthy ingredients in their food. And then finally, we added the leftover steak sauce that I used the other night when I cooked my dinner. So now I'm gonna add back the grass-fed and grass-finished steak tips that I used. And in the beginning, before I even made my sauce, I just browned this steak on the saute mode of the Instant Pot, and I browned it in some ghee because it has such a high smoke point, and ghee also has short chain fatty acids, which is really healthy compound for our digestion. Now that I've added that, I also have leftover, this is a little secret, leftover meatballs. Before, I told you I always like to have a combination of 2 types of meats. So it's usually steak and chicken, but I'm gonna try something new today. I had some leftover meatballs. So I'm going to stick those in here. They're already cooked, but they're just gonna soften up a little bit as the Instant Pot cooks. But the best part about this is you can throw in any combination of all kinds of things and close it up, and then you have a meal for a week. Literally every night there's leftovers or lunch, food to bring for lunch, all kinds of things. Then finally, this is the last part, and I really pack this Instant Pot to the top. You don't have to fill it up as much as me, but I have, and I'm gonna shut this off for a minute as I just described. Okay, because I don't want really that to cook too much. I don't want the sauce to evaporate. So this is my variety. I always talk about nutrient diversity, which is getting all the different colors of the rainbow. So in here, I have cruciferous vegetables, which are green, and green cruciferous vegetables help in so many ways. One thing that they do is they prevent cancer. They literally tell your body how to digest or break down certain hormones in a really protective way that protects you against cancer. So that's one thing that cruciferous vegetables do. I also have potatoes in here, and that's an example of my resistant starch, which I always talk about, that feeds the good bacteria in your gut. I also have some red pepper and yellow pepper and red onions and mushrooms. So when you're getting that kind of diversity, you just know that you're getting all the different vitamins and minerals that your body needs. This is also nutrient dense because every bite of food is packed with nutrition. There's no sugar, which is really no value. There's no nutrition in sugar. There's no white flour in here, which is also very low nutrition density. So we're taking out those kinds of ingredients that don't add nutrition, and we're adding in only dense, nutrient dense foods. So now that my meat is browned and my meatballs are in the pot and they're covered with that amazing sauce, and you've added enough liquid so that the pot won't burn, I'm going to now add my vegetables. Hopefully I won't spill anything here. Sometimes I do. And you're gonna see that I really push the limits of how much food I could fit into this pot, because again, I'm trying to have enough leftovers for a really long time. You can even freeze the leftovers if you don't want to eat the same thing every day. You can easily freeze parts of your leftovers and save them for another week when you're ready for a new dinner. But you're gonna see, I'm just gonna start using my hands in here because this is gonna get a little easier. I told you I spill things. After these videos are over, it takes a long time for me to clean my kitchen, but the good thing is that by 1 o'clock on Friday, I already have dinner for 5 more nights of the week. So I get a lot out of making these videos for you guys. We end up eating some of this food for a long time. Okay, we're getting there. Now, this is it. I mean, you put everything in this pot, make sure that it has enough liquid in there. It could be any combination of the sauces that you like. I did talk about a whole variety that I find that is delicious and healthy. And I'll go through everything again, but I just want to clean my hands off and close this so that it can start cooking. Just give me 1 sec. Okay. So I'm just gonna give this all a big mix before I shut it. It's already starting to cool down. It's unbelievable how hot it gets how quickly and how cool it gets so quickly. All right, so give everything a big mix. Unfortunately, I won't be here. You won't get to see the very end of this, but I will put a picture of it on the Facebook group after it's all cooked. Okay. So I had shut this off at one point because I didn't want, as I was talking, I didn't want the moisture to evaporate. But now that really this always takes me a minute to like click in. Eventually I get it. There we go. And you'll hear that like little beep that you just heard. So now it's closed. There's 2 things you need to do once it's closed. You just need to make sure that this little top is pointing in the direction that says sealed. There's another point that says venting, and venting is not where you want your food to be cooking. In an Instant Pot, you want it to be on sealed. And then once that's on sealed, you can choose whichever, you can't see this right now, but the options are soup and broth, or meat and stew, or bean, chili, or poultry. So I have meat and stew in there. That's the one I'm going to choose. And that gives the pot the number where it's going to be cooking for 15 minutes. As you get to use the Instant Pot more often, you'll get a better feel for how many minutes it actually needs to cook different types of meats and how soft you want your meat to be. So even though it said 15 minutes, if I wanted, I could adjust the minutes depending on previous experience, you know that you want your meat to become a little bit softer. I would say 15 minutes is really the max though. That will make your meat especially soft. Chicken, you might need a few less minutes, like maybe 12 minutes. Sometimes even 10 is enough. But I always like everything especially tender. So 15 minutes is a good amount of time. But what you'll notice as you're using the Instant Pot is that even though it said it's going to be 15 minutes, it's going to be a lot longer than that. And this is why. Because when we put this into sealed and we shut this tight, it takes the pot itself about 20, sometimes 30 minutes, depending on how much food is in the pot. I really fill it to the top. So the more that's in there, the longer it will take. So it takes about 20 to 25 minutes to seal, to really make sure it's completely sealed. And that's when the 15-minute cooking will start. And the same thing will happen on the other end, where after the 15 minutes is over, it will also take another 20 to 25 minutes to then vent on its own. You have the option to stop the venting yourself if you'd like to. However, I find that the food tastes a lot better if you allow it to vent on its own and just let everything sort of absorb the flavors and the sauces and everything. And so plan that although it's actually cooking for only 10 to 15 minutes, you need 20 to 25 minutes on both ends for the pot to first seal and then for it to unseal. So I hope that all makes sense. I'm just about at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like when it's all done. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and happy Friday, good Shabbos. I'll see you next week. Bye everyone.